What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eichmann. Together, we're about to embark on an inspiring journey. Our community thrives on the wisdom of insightful leaders that are right here in our backyard. And we're bringing their expertise to your ears. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your guide. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Homegrown Hustle. I'm here with one of the owners of Customer First Contractors and the first lot purchaser within Woodland Cove neighborhood, one of my neighbors, Ryan Mason. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're excited to have him on. Awesome backstory, but let's get into it. So right off the bat, you just want to introduce yourself to everybody. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how we got to here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matt. So my name is Ryan Mason. I am the president of Customer First Contractors. We are a licensed general contractor based out of Excelsior, Minnesota. Our main specialty is everything exterior on a home, roofing, siding, windows, gutters, that type of stuff. We are going to expand into the space of water and fire restoration. So that's something we can talk about today.
For sure. And so you kind of come from a line of hustlers, from what I understand, right?
Yeah.
Kind of cut your teeth in the car dealership space. Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up with the family business and that whole journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, without getting too long-winded, my grandpa actually started doing repairs on cars in Excelsior in 1920. And in 1926, he actually got the Chrysler franchise. And crazy story about this is the building that he bought in 1920 to start his repair facility and then turn into a car dealership is the same building where I put my first office in 2019 when we started Customer First Contractors.
Wild.
Yeah. And it was by happenstance. My business partner called me one day and he's like, "Hey man, I found this perfect space." Gave me the address. I go rolling in there and I'm like,
I feel like I've been here before.
Dude, so my grandpa, the building, we ended up moving the car dealership to where the Kowalski's is. That was our property. But the building where we are, I have a picture of my grandpa standing it was a livery barn, standing in the entry of it in 1920.
So you're like from Excelsior.
Yeah, pretty much. My wife gives me a lot of grief that I don't leave the bubble.
Hey, it's a comfortable bubble out there. I don't blame you.
So grandpa started in the car dealership, a car business, and then dad ended up obviously joining the family business. And I was one of those kids that grew up with Matchbox cars in my hand and Lamborghini posters on my walls. And I was destined to be in the car business, Got a real young start in entrepreneurship. I mean, I used to sell toys.
I love it.
we lived on West Lake Street in Excelsior, and I used to have toy sales and sell my old toys to get $20 to go buy something new.
Is that just because you saw it happening?
Yeah.
And you saw your father and the business doing it and you're just like, I got cars too.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's it. I don't know, is osmosis the right term for that? Where you obtain stuff from being around it?
I don't know, but you learned it and then you just did it naturally.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those things that I was constantly growing up hanging around the car dealership and watching my dad do this thing. And I was, it just kind of happened. It was just kind of in me.
All right. So you're hustling Matchbox early on, and then you moved on to real cars, right?
Yeah. So then I went to University of St. Thomas, graduated in 2001 with a degree in entrepreneurship.
So you're planning on this.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. I mean, it was never anything other. And to this day, I still love cars, But so when I got out of school, I started working in the car dealership in sales. I'd worked in detailing and just miscellaneous stuff around there as a kid, but real employment, started out in sales. And I started really noticing things right away that were kind of behind on the times, or I don't know, just weren't weren't up to snuff. And I really spent a lot of time the first probably 3 years in the industry, like really trying to refine our sales process. It just kind of came natural. It just kind of was like, I see how this can be better. Then in 2004, I went to the National Automobile Dealers Association Dealer Academy, which is like getting your master's in how to run a car dealership.
And that was a thing. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, and so here's the deal. So like when I came out of that, my dad is old school, right? And he was raised old school. When I first started working in the car dealership in 2000, we had the little pink while you were away notes. We didn't even have voicemail. And so there was a lot of tension there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I call it tension, one school versus a different school.
And I mean, it's a pretty common story that we hear in family businesses, like somebody going to college, coming back to the family business, whether it was intentional or unintentional. And now there's this friction created between the older generation.
Right.
But there's alignment there and everybody wants it to happen at some point, but that conversation can be tough.
Yeah, it was tough. And like a big part of this story, really, I lost my mom in 2001. And having a dad that owned a car dealership, you can imagine who I was raised by. I'm an only child. I have a half sister. Shout out Tina. And my mom kind of raised me, no fault to my dad. Love my dad. Amazing man. Taught me to be a man, taught me how to manage a house, all that stuff. But, when my mom passed away, it changed me. It changed my dad. And we both went through periods of mental health crisis. And so working together, dealing with that loss really was a major challenge for me. And I kind of went off the deep end for quite a few years. I was a very functioning partyholic. And
you were just getting after it.
I was getting after it. And, I was young, making a lot of money, had a big title, drove fancy cars, had my own house at the age of 22. Minnetonka, St. Thomas kid, pretty much. And yeah, so it was a very trying time for my dad and I. I was kind of a lost puppy dog to some degree for those years, probably, in the 2005 through 2012. But no, we got through it. We were managing, but then in 2009, we got our Chrysler franchise taken. It was a Chrysler Jeep dealership.
Damn.
And so when Chrysler and GM had to get bailed out by the government, they started canceling.
There's a trickle-down effect.
Yep. So, and it sucks, right? We were the oldest family-owned Chrysler dealership in the country, in the same family, in the same location. And we had the highest service satisfaction in the Twin Cities. And that's service was built into it was service. Mm-hmm. And we had people driving from all over the place just to come for our service.
Because you've differentiated yourself around that.
Correct.
In an industry that kind of lacks sometimes. Real good salespeople, right? But that kind of creates this whole just preconceived notion of what somebody who works in that industry is like.
Totally. And we just try to be different. We try to be, know the people, how are the kids, that type of thing. And it worked really well for us. But the problem was that you're not going to sell 100 new cars a month in downtown Excelsior. And so when Chrysler got bailed out and they needed to cut expenses, they're going to start, if you can get rid of 100 small guys, then you can get rid of 5 district managers. Then you can get rid of 3 managers of them. And then you can get rid of 1 guy that's getting $2 million a year. But that impacted
the business there directly.
Right. Well, so
put you out of business.
Well, we got a letter from Chrysler saying if you don't, every new car you don't have sold by June 25th, you won't. So So it was not like we'll take the cars back or like we'll help you. It was like you better sell those or you're going to have millions of dollars of cars that you own.
Okay, so how'd that play out?
Well, bad. They came, took down the signs. It was crazy. It really hurt because I picture my grandpa. I went to Excelsior Elementary, which is right across the street from there.
Yep.
And I used to walk to school every day. And every day I'd walk past the dealership. My grandpa would be waiting outside with a little fun size Hershey bar for me. And I'd see him standing outside the Chrysler and my grandpa with his fedora on, chewing on his cigar. And it really hurt a lot because I'm like, dude, this man would, in 1950, when there's 3 feet of snow on the ground and there's no plows back then, he would lace up his boots, trudge across town, go sit in the car dealership. No one's coming in. Maybe the phone rang, but then at the end of the day, he'd lace his boots back up and walk home. And so that was kind of funny. I haven't really felt emotion about it in a long time, but I am now. It was a pretty heavy thing,
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything we did. We were focused.
It's out of your control totally at that point, right?
Yeah, we were
this is
focused on
the
service.
economic downturn. I'm pretty sure recession is the term that we use for it nowadays.
Right. And so then when I got into St. Thomas, I had written a business plan on having a high-end used car dealership in Excelsior, because you sit outside and you watch Bentleys and BMW,
they're all
it's like, BMW is not a big deal. And so we did that. But the problem was we lost 50% of our service business because people like servicing with a franchise, right? You wouldn't bring your, And so you can't have that much property that we had losing 50% of your service business that used to cover your fixed expenses. You have to sell a lot of cars to make that. And we just weren't doing it. And my dad and I, again, just to recap, I was kind of a lost puppy dog. I was partying a lot. I wasn't giving it my all because I was really defeated. My dad and I weren't seeing eye to eye. Chrysler taking our franchise, losing my mom. Yeah. I went through a very tough period. And my dad and I wanted to have a relationship with my dad. We go golfing, we talk work. At Christmas, we talk work. Sure you hear it. Oh, yeah. And so we had all these offers to buy the property. And one day I walked in my dad's office and I was like, hey, like this just isn't working. I'm miserable. Every day I wake up, I'm anxious because I'm nervous and it's not going well. And you and I are fighting and, so that was 2012. We sold the property and I had to start fresh with something new.
And like on your road to recovery from being a partyholic.
Yeah.
Like where were you at in that journey?
Yeah. Well, so good question. So basically, I was running from my emotions and my sadness to instant gratification world. So anything that gave me instant gratification was what I was searching for. And if you want the honest truth there, there were drugs involved. It was a tough time. It was just, I was just focused on what can make me happy because I was so unhappy with myself. I'd eroded my own self-worth. And I was just unhappy with what had happened with my family's business, and like I felt responsible for it. And to be honest, I probably partially was. Could Ryan today make a high-end used car dealership work in downtown Excelsior? The answer is yes. Could Ryan back then? No. It just wasn't meant to be. But so my wife, honestly, like I was kind of a lost soul in 2012, and I met my wife, and my wife literally told me, she said, like one day she's like, what are you doing with yourself? Like you have so much potential. You can do anything that you put your mind to. Like, why are you laying on the couch feeling sorry for yourself?
Just called you out.
Called me out. And like literally was like, you're doing drugs. You're like, what's going on here? Like you have something that can be great. And that was the beginning of the transformation in Ryan. And I owe her a lot for that. And I don't know if I can say this, maybe you can edit it out, but you've heard the term Captain Save-A-Ho. Like I'm the reverse Captain Save. My wife came in and saved me.
We're not editing that. But that's a powerful story. So you were going through that and then 2012. So what were you doing for work?
So that I wasn't. And
so we sold
the dealership. I didn't really know what I was going to do. And one of my friends from St. Thomas owned a storm restoration company. And he was like, dude, you will crush if you come work for me. And I didn't know what else to do. And I said, okay. And I had been making 6 figures since I was 22 years old. I had my own house. I had my cell phone, my cars, my insurance paid for during all that period of time. And in 2012, I was broke.
Whoa. So I had to start a new industry
door knocking, storm chasing, and the only car I could buy was a 1991 Dodge Dakota rear wheel drive with the heat stuck on. And so I went
And
from
you didn't
driving
know
a Mercedes,
shit about storm.
I didn't know anything about construction. I'm a college business guy, you know, and he's like, all right, here's a script. Here's a neighborhood. Doors. And I got a little tutorial on what some hail looked like. Mm-hmm. And I'm driving around in my 91 Dakota AM FM.
So let's talk about it, because that's a really common thing in your industry, right?
Yeah.
Like insurance and hailstorms and storm damage essentially created that entire opportunity, and why there was kind of an oversaturation of roofers.
Oh, totally.
Right?
100%. Well, that's very good point. I mean, so just so you understand, like I consider myself a pretty intelligent person, and I was given such little information when I started this, outside of just what some hail damage looked like. I had to BS my way through.
But it's a commission-only sales role, right?
Commission-only sales position. I didn't know anything. And so just to kind of jump ahead, when I started my company, I'm sitting here looking at the competition, and the competition hires whoever they can hire that has a pulse that can go knock on doors. And it's a volume game, you know? And so I did that in 2012 and 2013, you know, and I hated it. I hated door knocking, because when someone rings my doorbell, I'm like,
I mean, we get it in our industry too, dude.
Right.
Like it's in our industry, every spring happens, there's a new group of college kids flown in from somewhere, and it's some new pest control company, and they're starting their business up. And like, it's a great growth model. It really is. However, in Minnesota, like customers don't like it that much, but it's still successful. Like it still works.
Right.
So, and that's like the reason why it continues to happen. But that model, there's a lot of things that happen within the business and the customer experience after that initial interaction.
Oh, I mean, that's the sad thing about that part of the industry. And the state of Minnesota is trying to quell that. Like, you have to provide people a right of cancellation, that they have 3 days from signing a contract, because the unfortunate thing is what a lot of the people that do the door knocking do is they take, you know, whether it's intentional or not, they take advantage of an old person. My husband passed away, and he used to take care of all this stuff. And, you know, and
again, they're commission guys. They're trying to close deals and get on to the next one.
Exactly.
And then use the Jones effect to Mrs. Anderson up the road. We're doing her job. We can give you a good deal. It's
literally, it's funny you say it, because the spiel that I get from those pest guys is the same spiel I used to give to people.
Well, that's the playbook, though.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, the things that are being pointed out, oftentimes they're real things. But the reason it's successful is because there's the volume, but it interrupts it, and we create this conversation. Otherwise, the only other way to get a call or to get a job is somebody has the issue. So I love it, because it reverses the whole ability to acquire new customers.
Yep.
But I also get the customer experience side of things, and then the service, which really, if you don't do the service, like, you can do all the sales you want, but the business is going to go out the door, especially when it's pest control models.
Totally.
But it's not that way in roofing.
Well, you know, the one thing I tell people is, like, I take really good care of my crews. Mm-hmm. Like, I take financially, respectfully, communication wise, all of those things. I can do the greatest job in the world beating up your insurance company, getting your insurance company to pay for all the damage you have. I can do a great job communicating with you, but if my crews are not,
they're leaving cigarette butts all over the place.
If they're not cleaning up well, they're not
just little things.
Exactly. It's like that can ruin months of hard work if they don't do their task well. And so a lot of companies in my industry, they're just volume. They just want numbers. And we, Customer First Contractors, our mission is in our name. You know, and that's really what it is. It's like, I would rather work with 100 people and make sure that I did all 100 of those jobs perfectly or to the best of my ability than 200 jobs, make a little less margin on each one, but make more money overall, but then have 10 people I'm running into in the grocery store yelling at me, and
is that something you got like from your grandfather?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's the only explanation for why I feel the way I feel is because I was raised that way from my grandpa to my dad.
Was it like talked about, or is that something that you just absorbed?
No, it was. Tell
me about that.
Okay, so like the biggest thing in the car dealership was you just touched on it. It's not just this transaction. Like price is an agreement, right? I mean, that's the easiest part of any sale.
And it's a requirement for a transaction to take place.
But it's really the easiest part. There's the rapport building. There's value building in the product you're selling. Do you like me as the salesperson? Am I hitting all your hot buttons? But the thing that was always instilled in me is like price is an agreement. That was literally what my grandpa used to tell me. Price is an agreement. It's all the other stuff that matters. It's how you treat the customer, how you present your demonstration to them, how you show them the service department and explain how to do that. You're building value in the whole process, right? And that is what we do at Customer First Contractors. It's not everyone, people aren't just a number. Like I get to know the people. I get to, what are their wants and needs, so I can address that. Because a lot of the work we do, we get insurance company to pay for their gutters.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Most people aren't going out and shopping for a new roof unless something happened and insurance is going to pay for it.
Right. Yeah.
So like that whole part of it is like there's almost like a oh shit scenario that has to happen in order for that transaction to be real.
Right.
Because you got to beat the insurance company up. We're not going to touch on like how it's changed yet, but we'll get to that because there have been some insurance changes and how that impacts homeowners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in Minnesota. But I forgot where we were at. Pick it back up for me, Ryan.
Well, we were talking about you had asked me how with my grandpa or if I had that customer service had been instilled in me. And so basically the moral of the story is yes, I mean, that's the experience in sales in the car business and in my storm restoration are kind of the same. They're the same type of process. And I have very documented processes for the sales process with homeowners. I inform them, I have documents I give them that walk them through the insurance process if we're dealing with an insurance company. And what I found in contractor world is that you have these guys who are very skilled tradesmen that are now saying, wow, I'm super successful. I'm going to start a business. And they don't run it.
They get the coolest truck ever.
Yeah, they get the jacked up truck. No, but they're really good at their trade, but they're maybe not so good at business.
It's so common in the trades where there's a disgruntled employee or something happens, they start their own business and they get to this point where they're making good money, but it's kind of going into chaos behind the scenes.
Correct.
Because the business sophistication and like the foundation that you got your whole life and then also went and got a degree for, it just doesn't exist.
Right.
So they're making decisions based off of feelings.
Well, and I have so much, like my project manager can build a house. When we sit down to do an estimate together and we're doing computer work, he's like a lost puppy dog. Now I'm a licensed general contractor that you don't want screwing a light bulb in because I'm really good at taking tests and I'm really good at studying and I know how to hire the right people to do the right things.
You're good with people and you're a good communicator.
Correct.
And so those skill sets coupled with like the business understanding that you have, that differentiates you just in how like the head of the business is really thinking. Because like the service, if we're talking like the commoditized roofer or exterior restoration guy, customer thinks that's the same guy regardless of what business we're talking about. Right. But in reality, the thought that goes in at that level is the business when it's executed on. Right. So how does that really differentiate you then from another roofer? Yeah.
So, I mean, the first thing is that we're a small company, but we all have special trade sets, right? Mm-hmm. My project manager, as I mentioned, he could build a house. And let me backtrack. So when I started my company, we sat down with subcontractors that I'd known just through being in the industry. We started the company in 2019, but I had been in the game since 2012. So I'd met a lot of roofers and siders and all these things. And so we sat down with the people we wanted to form our company with. And I asked them I said, what are the 3 things that you hate most about working with contractors? And the subcontractors are looking at me like, what? Like, you're asking me what I don't like? And I'm like, yeah, because I want to know so I can do the opposite.
Not that, yeah.
And
it's good sales.
And so I won't bore you with the details of those convos unless you want to hear it. But I mean, basically they told me the 3 things. And one of the 3 things was lack of on-site supervision, meaning these guys want someone there.
They want direction.
They want direction. They want to know if they're doing something wrong, right, if they need. And so I said, okay, I'm going to hire a guy that is on site at every job. And most roofing companies don't do that. Their project manager drops a permit off and never see him again.
Make sure the material shows up.
Yep. And so he's on site. Hey, the guys need something. He runs and grabs it so the guys can stay working. You know, like, hey, we ran into plank decking on this house in Minneapolis. We have to resheet the whole thing. I'm getting the photos. I'm sitting at my computer, sending them off to the insurance company. But so the moral of that story is like, my business partner, Chris, is an excellent businessman. Business, how to run the business, how to negotiate leases, how to, like that type of stuff. And he has a lot of connections with insurance agents. I'm really my specialty is the insurance side. I beat up insurance companies all day, every day, and I'm good at it. My project manager is the guy that when we run into funky things that someone wants done, he's the guy that says, hey, rip that down. We put a 2x4 there. We do this, we do that. And then I have a sales manager named Jay, who is just excellent at he came from a painting company. His thing is customer service. He's the guy that's like out in front of people. He's out meeting with insurance adjusters. And the biggest thing that we offer is when you hire one of us, you're hiring a team and we're all working for your betterment.
So what's it like at XYZ Roofing?
They hire, not all, and sorry to my friends.
There's a lot of great roofing companies out there.
Yeah. No, I mean, but the general thing is go to a college fair, put up a booth, hire as many college kids as you can for the summer to go knock on doors and give them a script, show them what some hail damage looks like and send them. And then these people walk up to the door and say, and on their business card, it says, something contractor, or sales representative, or you don't really. They all have these different titles, but it's all the same thing. They walk up, tell
Mickey Mouse,
and they tell everyone that
you just describe pest control.
Yeah,
it's playbook for door to door. It's nothing new. It's just like set of vacuums or
exactly, set of Kirby vacuum,
retirement stuff like that. Door to door has been around for forever.
Yeah.
Like it's the original business growth approach because it's direct to consumer and you create the conversation.
And it does work. And so the majority of these guys just aren't trained. They couldn't explain to you the code language behind why they need to do a roof repair. And so the problem is that if someone gets hooked up with one of these guys and they face a battle with their insurance company, a lot of these guys don't have the wherewithal to do it. Fight the battle. And so then what ends up happening is the person calls their insurance agent and says, hey, I just got part of my roof paid for and part of my siding and the contractor disappeared on me. And then the insurance agent says, call these guys. And then
you have to clean up
and then we pick up. Yeah. I mean, it's not all the time, but that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's part of the deal, right? If an insurance agent's going to send you a bunch of lead opportunities, you're going to take care of the battle.
I mean, that's great. But what are these other guys? What's going on here?
It's so roofing, prior to the changes, the changes that are upcoming was the highest profit margin and the easiest to do because
massive profit margin.
Yeah. I mean, it was up there 50%.
That on a big chunk of coin too.
Yeah.
You don't have to sell that many roofs to have $1 million business.
Well, yeah, that's why I try and hire all those pest control guys that come to the door and how many of these pest boxes do you have to sell to make $2,500? Because you could go sell one roof and make $2,500.
Savage. I do the same thing.
So, but none of them want to do it. I'm like, what's the deal?
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah. But so what was the
great guys?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. So to get back to it, I mean, like basically you want someone when you're hiring a contractor and you're dealing with insurance companies that obviously knows how to work with the insurance company, has good crews, and someone that can do all the stuff. Because what happens is a lot of these guys, they know the profit margins in that roof. So they go sign up that homeowner, do the roof, collect the money for the roof, and then disappear on the person. And the person's like, what about my gutters? And what about my windows? And what about and they're gone.
It's not their model. They're from out of town. There's a big hailstorm over here. Let's take our RVs and pop into town for a few weeks and rip out $100,000 in work.
Yep. And so our model is just 100% different from that. We just don't do the volume, and we focus more on the individual.
And because of the connections you have, you do travel within the state, right?
Yeah,
to take care
within
of
the state.
relationships that you have. So, like, what are some places that you've worked within the state? Because you're not just around Lake Minnetonka.
Right. Yeah. So we were just up at Brainerd. They got hit across lake. Up there, got hit last summer. So,
dude, I was up there right after that.
Yeah.
There were literally like, what's the one restaurant right there?
Zorba's?
There's another one. Anyway, there were like, it was raining out, and there was a dozen roofing contractors in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I was just...
It's wild.
Obviously there was a hailstorm.
Yeah. So I got I got one lead, a referral from up there, since most of our business comes from either homeowner referrals or insurance agent referrals. And, we've gotten there, Monticello, Clear Lake, Big Lake, Becker, down south, Lakeville, Egan, Watertown, Delano.
You bounce around.
Yeah. I mean, we're just around. And what we tend to do is when someone gives us a lead, a referral or an insurance agent gives us a lead, we'll go talk to the neighbors. So I don't want to say that we don't door knock. We'll go talk to neighbors and stuff, just to real hey, working with them.
We're going to be here. We won't pop your tires with random nails in the road.
Well, and that's funny you say that, because I created a document through EgoView, which is satellite measurement software.
Fascinating.
And it's called a neighborhood report. And it's something that I can have my project manager go hand out to neighbors. And it literally says just that, hey, if any debris blows in your yard, or, whatever, someone's being loud, here's my contact number if you have any questions.
Smart. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's an easy introduction, but that's a customer service focused contact point, not, hey, let me climb on your roof and try to find some hail damage.
Exactly. It's a very soft intro.
The roofing and insurance business, as it stands right now, there have been some massive changes, and it's going to impact a lot of these businesses. Do you want to touch on some of those changes that have happened?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, storms aside, right? I mean, we need storms, but that aside, Mother Nature aside, insurance companies in Minnesota have been paying out piles of money. Year after year, we've been getting lots of big storms. There's been a little drought the last year, but prior to that, we're getting multiple a summer. And so what's happening is everyone's premiums are going up. And that's a big misconception in insurance world, is that if I file a claim, my premiums are going to go up. Your premiums go up based on the geographic region. If you're a serial claim filer, yes, Maybe. It might impact it. But if you're just filing a claim for hail and then, my car got run into in a parking lot, it's not going to affect it. Everyone, you haven't had an insurance claim, and I bet your premiums went up this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So premiums are going up. Insurance companies are also getting tight with how they pay for roofs. So I'll do the best to explain this without diagrams. So let's say your roof on your home is probably a $30,000 roof. Okay. So replacement cost is what most insurance companies have been paying on that. So if it costs $30,000 and you have a $2,000 deductible, you're getting $28,000 to fix your $30,000 roof.
It's a good deal.
Good deal. Great deal.
We like insurance in that scenario.
Exactly. So now what they're doing is they're changing the policies after your roof is a certain age to be what's called actual cash value. Meaning,
So they depreciate it.
correct. What is it worth today? Not so the depreciation that is typically held back, you don't get. So in that example I gave of the $30,000 roof, they might withhold $15,000 of that until we've proven that we've done the work by sending in an invoice and permits, and then they release that 15 to you. Well,
The homeowner has to bite off a bigger chunk.
Correct. So,
Or else the margin has to come down big time.
okay. So yeah. So a little
This
from
is not
column A
good.
and a little from column B, right?
Yep.
And so what happens then, I had a customer last year who had 2% of their home value deductible. So that's the other thing. They're upping deductibles on wind and hail. 2% of his home. Okay. So do the math on that.
Yeah.
Then, and it wasn't even that great a house. It was probably a $400,000 house, right?
Yeah, but that's
But
$8,000.
That's $8,000. Okay. So he had a 1 or 2% deductible. He had an actual cash value policy. This is an American family claim. After all was, he had an older roof, so a lot of depreciation.
Mm-hmm.
He got a check for $127 on a $20,000 roof.
Thank you, insurance.
Yeah. So I had to bid it as a customer pay roof, which my margins are way less than. I'm not going to charge you the same thing I charge an insurance company, because we use the same estimating software called Xactimate when I'm dealing with insurance companies, where if you are coming to me, I'm going to actually figure out my costs and put a margin on it. But where's I going with that? So
pretty much.
Oh yeah. So in that example, so what we ended up doing is we had to bid it as a customer pay roof because he got $127 from his insurance company. So I cut my margin and he came out of pocket with a lot of money. And so that's really going to screw with a lot of companies.
Well, there's going to be a lot fewer roofs replaced in Minnesota.
Correct.
Like a lot fewer. And there's going to be, I know there's like rejuvenation processes where you can, there's a lot of crap going around there because this has been coming for a while, but now it's like a for real thing.
It is.
And the other thing that's going to happen is all these guys that are making decent money, making easy roofing sales, they got to find a different place to work.
Yeah.
Guys and gals. There's gals that do this too.
Absolutely.
But so that whole shift, not only is it going to impact cool truck driving business owner, but all those jobs and all the people that are in the trades in sales, which there's not too many of them. Now they got to go find somewhere else, whether it's still in the trades, we're hiring at Abracadabra, or if it's in a different space. So.
Right. But here's the good thing. When we don't have storms and things get tough, you weed out the guy we talk
average.
Yeah. The below average guy that just got his general contractor's license and thinks he can go out there and like run a successful company. So we've seen some of that. The industry is shrinking. Companies are downsizing.
They're either downsizing or they've been purchased by big PE firms. Like there's a lot of that happening locally. So all these companies have been rolled up into these big, like massive roofing companies.
Right.
And they might still have those old names, but they all run under this PE firm.
Correct.
Or the multiple firms that are operating locally because the model works. They're going to control purchasing really is what it is, because when you own that much market share, now you set the price.
Exactly.
And then if you know the insurance companies, now you are part of the problem solving at that level as well.
Well, and the one concern I've had is just that, like, what if some big PE firm that has some connections with State Farm comes into Minnesota and says, hey, we'll be
your preferred vendor.
Exactly. And then now every State Farm claim goes through them. They come to an agreed price per square or something like that.
And the sale happens at that level. Check a box here if you want to include a roof, and you can use our preferred vendor if it does happen. Like now they just became the biggest roofing company in Minnesota for sure.
Exactly. And, like price per square. So a square is 100 square feet of roofing, right? Mm-hmm. So if a roof is steep and if it's 2 stories off of ground and, there are all these things that can increase the price.
Job. Yeah.
And so what my fear would be is that big guy goes in and says, hey, State Farm, I'll do all your roofs for a flat $600 a square, and they're going to win on those low pitch Ramblers and they're going to lose, steep, tall roofs. But State Farm's looking at 900 a square
averages,
here
yeah.
and 500 a square. And
they cut out a lot of back and forth with just the conversation internally. And like now the margin moves either to the bottom line or to another process around just navigating it with that preferred vendor. This is
how much could you save in adjusters fees?
Millions.
And how many adjusters would you not have to have if you had that relationship? So
those type of things are happening behind the scenes, and whether it's going to happen now or in 10 years, like when an industry makes that much on jobs and the margins as big as it is there, obviously private money is going to come into that space. And it's happened in all the trades with AI and everything else coming into play. Like the whole, pretty soon the ability to remove jobs within the customer service in the office with AI is going to be very, very realistic. And now the margin, that all goes to the bottom line. Now we pay for the software and for people to update that and make sure we're good. And now we don't have to pay all that into employment fees.
Exactly. And I'm trying to hedge against all these changes right now by we're involved in some programs with insurance companies, just like what we're talking about. We're a preferred contractor for Travelers Insurance. So if you don't have a contractor and you can go to
they vet the contractor for you.
Oh, dude, I had to give them
blood.
It was more intense than becoming a general contractor in Minnesota. I had to give them personal financials, business financials, background checks.
That's good for the consumer, though.
100%.
So that makes sense from a business standpoint.
And it makes sense for everyone involved. And now they're starting to roll it out with a couple other companies that I'm trying to get in with, but it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense for the homeowner. And I also get really good at learning travelers' policies. So when I'm submitting documentation to them, hey, you guys missed this or didn't pay enough for that, I know their guidelines. And so I adhere to them, and it makes the process much smoother for the adjuster and everyone else.
Yeah, now it's not an argument. It's this guy knows what's going on.
Exactly.
It's an easier path for the homeowner.
100%. And my margins, again, aren't as high as they are with some other insurance companies, but I'm getting
at the end of the day, we gotta sell roofs. Right? And we're gonna take those however we can get.
Exactly.
And a pay-per-click lead for that, I know, is not cheap.
No.
And it's probably going up.
Exactly.
So the whole industry is being flipped upside down. And I think we're kind of coming to time here, but I know the companies that are handling things how you are and have people that aren't just looking for a cash grab, but they actually are in the business and they care about the customer. Those businesses will be fine.
Yep.
The businesses that have these guys with inflated sales forces that were relying on really easy transactions from insurance,
100%.
Those are the ones that I'm a little concerned about, those businesses and the families that
rely on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it is scary. And we're going to start now getting into water restoration, fire restoration work. We have a really good team of people we've already put together. Our main restoration specialist has mold, fire certifications, does it commercially. So now he's transitioning into residential with us.
But understanding the insurance process, that's 90% of the problem with these industries. You can find a crew to do the work. We can get customers 1,000 different ways. But if you don't know the insurance process, it's really hard to get to a deal being done and the transaction completed.
Exactly.
But you guys have created a system that runs really smoothly so that, as your name says, the customer feels that way, which is really what we're going for with that type of experience.
Totally.
So before we have to cut it, a couple questions for you. Anything else you want to tell your customers or anybody in the Lake Minnetonka area about your business or how to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I would tell everyone is we base our company on good communication. And in the contractor world, just timely updates, a schedule, knowing what to expect. And that's the big thing is we set expectations up front, we follow through with them, and you receive excellent communication from us throughout the process. We do specialize in dealing with insurance companies, but that's not all we do. I mean, we still do 20% of our business is, homeowner pay, whatever. And part of the reason that we're getting into this space of remediation is because when you earn someone's trust and you do a good job for them and you follow through, they want you to do other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been saying no to a lot of things. And now I'm like, well, I should start saying yes.
Yeah.
So that's
what
we're doing.
Move. Yeah,
and that's what we're doing. We're trying to diversify. LP siding is a big thing we're doing in windows. We're spending a lot of time on. And so we're not so reliant on that storm and on the roof. Exactly.
Because you guys can build a whole freaking house.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Anybody in the Woodland Cove neighborhood you want to shout out?
Outside of you?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm here. You don't need to shout me out. I've been doing that
I'd
myself.
shout out to my wife and kids, Jen, Catherine, and Evelyn.
It's the proper answer.
Yeah. That's about
What's
it.
up, everybody else?
Yeah, what's up? Well, I still love you all.
And then last
Corey,
question, Corey, you are freaking hilarious. So when it comes to business, how do you define hustle?
Hustle. I mean, I think hustle is trying to find opportunity in everything, you know?
Oh, that's beautiful.
I'm constantly looking for new ways to grow the business. I'm also looking for new ways to connect with people, you know, and just give people a different experience to where they when they think outdoor or outside of their house, they think of me, you know?
Yeah. And you left the bubble to come into Minneapolis.
I did.
You're really like going outside your comfort zone.
Yeah,
thank you so much. She's probably going to listen to this.
Yeah.
I like to think.
100%.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for coming on. Thanks everybody for listening. Another episode of Homegrown Hustle here. Keep sending the questions in. Give us a like, share with a friend. Ryan, you're awesome. You're a great neighbor, and we love having you in the neighborhood. And an awesome business owner. So
Thank you.
if you got questions about insurance or you got a project going on and you need another look, reach out to him. Truly a quality human being. And that I don't throw that around lightly. Like that's very important. So thanks for joining us here today, Ryan. And until next time, keep hustling.
Are you dealing with pest or wildlife issues on your property? Call us at 763-328-0156 or scan the QR code to learn more.
Thanks again for joining us on Homegrown Hustle. Our local business community thrives because of the brilliant leaders right here in our backyard. And it's been an absolute privilege to provide them with a platform to share their invaluable expertise. Stay tuned for more insight, wisdom, and inspiration from our local business champions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Together, we'll continue to nurture and expand our homegrown success stories. Matt Eichmann signing off until our next insightful episode.